All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're all able to share my screen, see my screen, and are ready to learn and hear about monitoring Azure resources using the Kusto Query Language. Today, we'll be talking with Taleb Ali about the Kusto Query Language and learning all kinds of great things about it and making all of our lives easier. With that, I want to remind you yet again, this is the DBA Fundamentals group. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the three leaders of the team, Steve Cantrell, Shane O'Neill, and myself, Kevin Wilkie, and our Twitter handles. If you, for whatever reason, need to get hold of us. And going down right down below that, you'll see the many ways you can get hold of us. First off is Meetup, our wonderful group that we allows us to actually talk to you each week or most weeks about various items. Below that, you'll see our wonderful webpage, dbafund.org, where we talk about pretty much anything for our presentations. It has all of our archives as well as our upcoming presentations. Below that is our link to what we call the DBA FunTube, where you can actually get to all of our past presentations. We also connect to us via Twitter at DBA Fun, our Slack channel, and our LinkedIn group, where we have lots of conversations going on about various things with DBA fundamentals. I want to remind you that all of our sessions are recorded and usually available within 1 to 2 days. You can check us out on bit.ly/dbafund YouTube. And with that, we go to Taleb, who has possibly the longest bio I have seen in quite some time. It's great. By the time we get through with this presentation, you will know lots of stuff about Taleb, as I am sure you will love every minute of speaking with him. And so with that, we go to Taleb.
Thank you, Kevin. Let me share my screen. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining and taking an hour of your busy schedule and listening to me. I also want to thank Kevin and other organizers for the opportunity, because you always have a chance to choose other speakers. So I appreciate that. So let's get started. I'm not going to read my bio. This is a shorter version of what Kevin was showing, but I want you to take a note of my contacts on the left side of this slide, and you can use any of these four. I do monitor all four, and I can guarantee you that I'll get back to you max probably 2 days. So after this presentation, if you come up with a question, comments, feedback, please reach out to me, and I'll make sure I get an answer for you. Sometimes I'm not the smartest person to find out an answer, but I know people there are smarter than me, so I can go to them, get the answer, and bring it back to you, or at least connect you with them. So before we get deep dive into this, I only have few slides. I'll probably talk for about max 10 minutes, and then it will be all demo. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of background about the topic, what is Kusto Query, and what is the practical use of this. So Kusto is being used extensively in many places within Microsoft stack. I kind of tailored this talk a little bit towards database centric, because that is where I spend most of my time, either databases on premises or databases in Azure. That's our primary cloud provider where I work. That's why I mentioned Azure. If you're using other ones, that's okay, but I don't know if they support Kusto Query Language or no, probably no. And recently I've been diving into a little bit Synapse Analytics Workspace, and that led me to Azure Data Factory. But one thing I noticed that it doesn't matter what resource you use in Azure. Kusto can be used to monitor troubleshooting, trending, capacity planning, pretty much everything we used to do on premises. You need to do those in Azure resources, and Kusto is a good language to learn to do many of those. Same thing. So, first thing, Kusto is a read-only request. We cannot modify the data, and the reason, some of the reason, Microsoft designed this way to make it faster, because the primary goal is when you have huge amount of data, either it's from metrics or from logs, to quickly find out what is wrong, right? So you want to quickly know if you have a problem, if you are beyond your boundary, right? If your CPU exceeds certain thresholds. That's why the data is staged in such a way, it's indexed in such a way that you can get your results set pretty quickly. And the flow model or the syntax of this language is kind of pipeline based. So if you use PowerShell, you can pipe a set of data to the next command or function. You can pretty much do the same. You might get confused during my presentation with, I'll use this term a lot, is a Azure Data Explorer. So just keep, and I want to make it clear at the beginning that Azure Data Explorer is itself a standalone service Microsoft provides. So if anyone has a bunch of data and even they need to analyze those data or query those data, doesn't matter it's from a logs or from any other devices from edge, you can use that service, right? So like if say like you have thousands of sensors in a factory, that sensors are continuously sending data, you can put those data into Azure Data Explorer and then you can query those. But that also uses Kusto. That's why I'll mention Azure Data Explorer in few slides. So a little bit of history. To 2014, Kusto started as an internal project at Microsoft. And then in 2016, it became the back end of application inside. So same problem. When you're running your application, you are collecting your logs, and it's huge amount of data, right? So if you had a global company, you are running your operations all over the world, you are getting logs from, all over the place, and you quickly want to know, if there is an anomaly, right? To give you an example, I was looking at something, say take a news feed, right, or a news channel. I don't know, whatever you like. I know it's political. So like CNN or Fox, people are watching this all over the world, right? Because they have outlets everywhere. So what they do is they try to ping their websites or their URLs from many different parts of the world, and they measure that time, and they want to see if one of their feed is down in some countries, or it's slow, or it's taking a long time, or they have increased traffic because of a local situation happened in that area of the world. And they are continuously monitoring this, right? So for them, it's, this is a perfect, solution to collect this data into probably in a format, in a read-only format, already indexed, compressed, and column store index, is another thing they use because they can quickly query it. So when Microsoft was using it internally for application inside, and they found that it can be used for other purposes, they saw it useful. So 2018, Azure Data Explorer service was launched as a public preview. And from there, it kind of extended to other areas. And one of the things that we'll be primarily looking at today is a log analytics workspace. And I'll show you what that means, how data get ingested, how you set it up, and then what you can do, a practical use of Kusto Query Language. So this is a visual that you can see that on our left side, we have all these resources. It can be operating system, it can be a whole subscription tenant, and you have other resources. So, and you are sending your metrics and logs. So what's a matrix? Matrix is similar to WMI counter. So you want a single piece of information at certain time, right? What is my CPU right at 12 o'clock? What is my disk space used at 1 p.m., that kind of information. And then logs is a little bit more into details. And those can be ingested in many places, right? I'm talking about log analytics workspace, but that's not the only place. You can send those to a storage account. You can send those to Event Hub. But we'll primarily talk about log analytics. And once you send those there, then you can do all kind of stuff, right? You can alert on those. You can have action groups. Say if my VM is running at this capacity for X number of minutes, automatically scale up, right? If my VM, if my VM is running at a low capacity for X number of minutes, scale it down to save money. You can, connect this with function apps. You can connect this with runbooks and do all kind of stuff. You can also have, Power BI dashboards. I'll show you how you can extract the data directly from Log Analytics Workspace or Azure Data Explorer, and you can create a dashboard which you can share, and people can refresh at their own time. So there is, a lot of possibilities. It all depends what you're looking for, what you need. Based on that, you customize your solution. Another. Again, I put the URL. It's pretty much copy paste from Microsoft documentation. Shows you again all your resources on the left side. Send it to Log Analytics Workspace on the right. There's many different ways that you can consume that data. And one of the reason that this is getting more popular is you can centralize. So what I mean by that, I can collect my operating system information. If I'm running database service, I can collect those. I can collect my application logs all in one place, and then I can do cross join, right? I can have, I'll show you, you can have different data stores, and you can do queries by joining. Like in SQL Server, we are used to different kind of joins. You can do pretty much same here. So you can join different data stores, and so you can correlate if this was a side effect of that happened over, on your operating system or from your app side, or something happened in your database that is surfacing in your application log. So you can correlate all those. So that's the bigger advantage of sending everything to Log Analytics. Now, to make our life a little bit easier, Microsoft also recently, and when I say recently, this happened, I don't have exact timeline in my head, but KQL Magic is it extended the Python kernel in Azure Data Studio. So now once you load KQL Magic, you can actually use Python kernel notebooks with Python kernel that you can mix match Python and Kusto Query Language. And so again, give you more capability to analyze your data, and you can also create visuals that you can share with your teammates. And recently, if you use Azure Data Studio, which is a multi-platform tool for data professionals, you will see a new kernel that showed up in Azure Data Studio, which is KQL. So right now, I'll show you this in demo. So right now, KQL notebooks are pretty seamless with Azure Data Explorer, but it is not very convenient to connect to a Log Analytics workspace and extract data. And I'll show you that, and I'm sure Microsoft will probably improve this in future. I do not have any inside info on that, but that something came out, works seamless with Data Explorer, but not with the Log Analytics workspace that much here. So, but we'll look at a little bit on that. So this is a practical, kind of a design that I want to show you. From your Azure SQL DB, there are two things called Azure SQL Auditing and Diagnostics. You can set those, send your Log Analytics and metrics to Log Analytics workspace. Oh, sorry, I need to remove this automation. So I had it for a different reason. And then using those two things that I just talked about, KQL Magic and KQL Extension, we can pull this data directly from Log Analytics Workspace, or we can go into the portal and do raw query with Kusto, and from there we can create alerts and stuff to see, if we want to alert on something or trending or whatnot. So some of you might be, thinking not another one, right? Not another language. Now, can I just use T-SQL? With Azure Data Explorer, you have some possibility of using T-SQL, but with Azure Monitor, absolutely no. So if you are sending this to Log Analytics Workspace, the only way you can pull out data is using Kusto Query Language. And I'm pretty confident, if you haven't looked at it at all, after this session, you will see that this is, if you know T-SQL, this is not a, it's not a hard ride. It's pretty easy for you. And again, this is a quote from Microsoft documentation, that the primary means is Kusto Query Language. So how can I learn? If you look at my reference slide, I put enough URL to get started. And I'm going to use, you see these 3 URL, I'm going to use the first one today for a larger portion of the demo. So what Microsoft did is Microsoft created a couple of Log Analytics Workspace and Data Explorer service. And Microsoft is feeding test data continuously 24/7. So you just need to have a portal account. You do not need credit. You can go and use those data to test your or to start getting familiarity with Kusto Query Language. So you can start writing queries if you do not have a setup at your workplace as of today, because a lot of companies are not into cloud yet, or they just started their journey, or they're in a hybrid mode like I am. So if you do not have that setup, go there. And you can start using it as long as you have a portal account. I made a mistake here. I'll fix it before I upload this. I'm actually in Azure Data Studio, I think 1.30. I updated on the weekend, so I haven't did this on the slide. Sorry about that. So this is what I'm going to use for the demo. And these are all the references. So one point I'm going to talk about is the second bullet point here. As you see, this Pluralsight course has been sponsored. So if you just have a Pluralsight account, even if it's not a paid account, you should be able to do this course free of cost to you. It's almost 4 hours, but it has 8 modules. So you can do it module by module if you do not want to sit for 4 hours in one go. This is the best resource I can recommend if someone is not familiar with Kusto Query Language, because this one, Robert, goes from very basic to some advanced features of this language, and I find it very useful if you're not familiar with, if you're just getting started. So I'm going to switch to demo. This will be a good time if anybody has any questions or comments before I go there. Can you send your decks? So yes, I will. Kevin will publish it. I'm going to just fix few things and upload the newer version, and then you can definitely get a hold of it. All the scripts are already in my GitHub. I'll just refresh the repo with the modifications that I did in last few days for this presentation, and you can download everything and use it whatever you need. This script setup demo, as you can see, it takes about 5 to 8 minutes. So I'm not going to run this right now. I already ran it this morning, but it has enough instructions, enough comments to do everything for you to understand. And again, if you are not sure, if you get stuck, please reach out to me. There's one place only you want to change your things before you run this, is here. This is where all the variable names, if you don't like the names, I have my password saved in a particular place so you don't see it. I also have my subscription ID. You have to change that. So other than that, once you change you are into the right context of your subscription. And if you like these names, you have a file here. You should be able to, good to go. So I want to show you what this script did, right? So you don't feel like, I'm keeping you in dark. So this script created a resource group, which I always do. What benefit of creating a resource group and creating your resources in one, that after I'm done with this demo, or done with this talk, I can just go and run this one line. It is going to clean up everything that I created for this session. I do not have to go and delete these things individually, which can be a pain if you have, many more. And as you can see, I'm not using my company subscription where I have, more money. These are through, different things that I get. So I have limited money, so I try to use it wisely. So we created a Azure SQL Server, which is a logical server, not same as what you see on premises. And what I did here, I set up auditing. And what does that mean? So my audits are going to a log analytics workspace, which I'll show you. So bear with me for a minute. And this is at a server level. And I also set up diagnostics, which is at a database level. And these are also going to the same log analytics workspace. And once you set this up, it continuously goes there. Okay, this is taking a little bit longer. I didn't expect that. And I haven't done any of this using the GUI, so it's all through the PowerShell that I showed you. Okay. So here also I'm saying, I choose all. You do not have to, based on your requirement. You can choose what you want to send to. They're going to this log analytics workspace. And there are other options, as I said before. So now, I mentioned about log analytics workspace many times, so let's look at it. And I'm going to use some terms very loosely. So you can consider this as a database, and these are tables. They're columns. This is your data type. So because I set up audit and diagnostics, two of these tables will get populated. And if I just type here, this is where you type your Kusto Query Language. I'm pretty much saying select a star, and you get your data. So to show you a practical example, what I did here, and again, that PowerShell script that I showed you will do all this for you. I have one alert. It's pretty simple. It's saying if you find a deadlock, let me know. Now, are you going to do this in production like this? Probably no. I'm just showing this for demo purpose. This is the query. This is a pretty simple one. And I did mention here in this script that if I was doing this in my production, I'll probably put a little bit more, the predicates will be a little bit more complicated, not that simple. So you can pretty much take my code and change this to whatever you need, right? And make whatever, suits your requirements. So what does this do? So we have a resource group, of course, we talked about. We saw the alert. And then I need action group. what this is telling is if this alert fires, what it should do. In this case, I said, send me an email, a SMS message or text message, and a voicemail. Of course, again, I said you probably don't want to do this. If you have 200 production servers, you do not want to get phone call, SMS 24/7 for each deadlock. You need to manage this based on your requirement. And then, I can have a subject line and a description. This severity really doesn't do anything for now, but many ticketing systems, like I use one called ServiceNow, they have templates. So what I can do is in my template, I can say, if this alert comes at severity 3, then you set your priority and urgency to those numbers. Based on that, we can, get either email, you can get phone call or SMS. So you can take that advantage, depending on whatever tools you guys use at your workplace. Another thing is your action group doesn't have to be an email, text, or voice message. Your action group can be a webhook, which can go and call a notebook. So like I was saying before, if you have a VM, you want to scale up or scale down. I know there are other tools now, or there are other services to scale up and down your VM, but I'm just giving an example. You can go and fire up a notebook to do stuff. So like, if you want to do index maintenance or anything, pretty much you can call other services through this. So now to see this in action, let's go back to this. I have this T-SQL to generate a deadlock. This is not a rocket science. If you Google it, you will see there's probably hundreds and thousands of examples how to do this. It's pretty simple. You do a begin, try and hold the lock, and then do it from a different session. For some reason, I'm still trying to, and I'm working with someone at Microsoft. I cannot figure out if I run this from Azure Data Studio, the deadlock happens. It does not end up into my log analytics workspace. So I have no idea. I'm trying to figure this out for a while. I'm still working on it. So I'll simulate this from my SSMS. I did test this before, so it works from here. So we are connecting to the server that I showed you in the portal and to the database. In Azure SQL database, you cannot use database statements, so you have to make sure you are in the right context of the database. So we will be dropping this table, creating new tables, and just insert 2 rows. That's it. I'm doing a begin run. I'm updating this record. And if I go here, yeah, I have to change this. So now I'm holding this, with this begin run. Come back here. And I put enough comments, so you should be able to follow this. Now we should see a deadlock in one of the. So here, so this session got deadlocked. So let's commit on this one. So I'll show you 2 things. One is to get an alert on the deadlock. Other one is I'm going to drop these 2 tables. So I have a query that we should be able to run in Log Analytics workspace. Say after a release or a bad deployment, someone dropped a table by mistake and they want to know, not to blame someone, people make mistakes, but if you want to find out what time that table got dropped from what host, which login, and all that, we will be able to find that into the Log Analytics workspace. Now, one caveat here is that Log Analytics workspace, pretty much it takes about between 5 to 8 minutes for these things to land into the Log Analytics workspace, and Microsoft is well aware of it. So you will see, and if you're keeping an eye in this space, you probably saw something about Azure SQL Insight. which is not in public, not GA yet, but very soon a lot of these things, instead of what I'm showing you, will probably be using Azure SQL Insight, which has the same concept, but it's more configurable. The schemas are going to be broken down into smaller tables and all that, because today it's all one schema with 500 columns. So there are some drawbacks with that, and they are trying to make it a lot faster, because like I said, this deadlock to land into the log analytics workspace take about between 5 to 8 minutes. So any question? Okay, I can see this. That would be great. Do you have examples for how to accomplish the same level of auditing using managed instance instead of Azure SQL database? I do not. So not on this talk, but I can definitely follow up with you on this. I kept this talk because of the timing. Absolutely for Azure SQL database, the PaaS service. And actually, I needed this at my workplace, I'll be honest with you. And what I'm showing you, this is exactly what we do at my workplace, the way we designed this. That I cannot give you exact numbers, but whatever number of Azure SQL database we have today in production, if the number goes, if it increased by tenfold, we do not have to change a single thing. We just have to make sure every Azure SQL database is sending their diagnostics and audits to the same log analytics workspace, and we do tier it, with the dev, UAT, and production and all that. Other than that, we just have to set these alerts one times, and we do not have to do the work over and over. So, and if we have to change anywhere, we change it in one place, and it will work for hundreds and thousands of Azure SQL database. So I talked about KQL magic, and I copied this, written by Julie. She works at Microsoft, and then I modified it with her permission, so she knows about this. Just want to make it clear, I'm not going to use the Kusto kernel here. I'm still using the Python kernel, and because of that, every time I want to use it, I have to reload the KQL magic. I already did this to make sure that I don't get into error message. Here, I'm passing the workspace ID of my log analytics workspace, right, as a parameter. And if you do not know how to use parameter in a notebook, please look it up. Microsoft, I think Julie even has a documentation on that. So if we go here, and if I go to my log analytics workspace, this is the workspace ID. And I copied that here, run this. And so now I'm connected to that workspace ID. Now, instead of running it in the portal all the time, I can run it here, and I can do more fancy stuff. If you're not familiar with Azure Data Studio, look it up. You can write notebooks, you can have visualization, you can create charts right from here and all that. So because it's a Python kernel and I'm using KQL, I have to use this %KQL. And now I'm actually querying the same data from that log analytics workspace using Kusto Query Language. And if I take this portion to the portal, we'll get the exact same data. But if you do not want to come to portal every time, you can do it from there. It's the same data, as you can see. And as I said, I'm not going to, the goal is not to talk about a notebook, how these things works. You can customize this and create charts and stuff. I also put how a T-SQL query will look like, if I am going to do this from a SQL Server table. So there are more. This one, I can say render bar chart. Bar chart means I do not have to click that button. I can, using the render function, I can directly create a chart. And there are a few more I put in here. I'm not going to run this, but if you want to do this by yourself, like I put one like for deadlock analysis, find the deadlock query plan, and using query store. These are all written by Julie. I added few more here. This is what I was talking about, find deleted table. So the one we just deleted might not show up yet. This is probably from my test that I've been doing from the weekend in preparation for this talk. As you can see, with this, because I use a project here, so let me take this out, because it restricts what columns I'm looking for, right? Now you might see, okay, now you can see more, right? So let me move this out. As you can see, this is one of the problem today is the schema has columns that has nothing to do with this collection. That's why you will see a lot more unnecessary columns with empty and null. But you can see exactly what statement it is, what application caused this, host name, and bunch of things, right? So this is another example beside the deadlock that I created that you can find who dropped this table, right? The other thing I talked about, how can you use directly a Kusto kernel and write a notebook that you do not have to use the Python kernel if you do not want to. We're going to use one of the Azure Data Explorer. So let me show you this. This is pretty recent. Azure Data Explorer, now you can connect to SQL Server or to a Kusto Azure Data Explorer service. And this is a free one provided by Microsoft. Help. You just need to have an account, and I'm using the samples database, right? So we are connected. And now we can directly query without going to the portal. Now, how about the log analytics workspace that we created? As you saw in the KQL Magic notebook, we were able to just get the workspace ID and then connect to it using this command, right? Here it's a little bit cumbersome. You still have to use this whole URL for each query. You cannot save this, or you cannot just run this one time and use this connection string from the cache over and over, right? I have to put all these details and then I can query the log analytics workspace. I still don't think this is a practical way to use this. As I said, it's probably going to take a little bit more time to Microsoft to come up that I can authenticate once against my log analytics workspace using my account, and then I should be able to just run queries, right? Like we do with the T-SQL, right? I'm connected here, and then I'm just running my my queries. It's not there yet. As you can see, I did this one time here, and now I'm doing the take 10, and now I'm connecting again if I have to run another query. So these are pretty much some of the things that I'm going to show you before I go to the basics of the language, like how you can get it started, and I'll show a couple of things. So this will be a good time. If anyone has any questions, I can also check. Okay, so no questions. Okay, so I'm going to get going. In the portal, let me get full screen, so get some more real estate. This is no, this is not the one that. Okay, so this is one of the free URL that I showed you in my slide, demo logs blade. This is being, as you can see, there are more stuff, right? If you see my one, this is in my subscription. You only saw log management, but as you see here, there's more. So Microsoft is feeding all of this 24/7. Sometime at some days I'll notice that some of the tables are empty, means they are not feeding, and ideally, there is no way to know that unless you query those, right? So you do not have to create any of this, right? Once you set up a resource to send their logs or metrics to the log analytics workspace, behind the scene, your data repository is going to get created, right? So this is what you see. You do not have to start from scratch. There are some sample queries based on what you're looking for. If you're trying to troubleshoot application, these are some of the queries that Microsoft already wrote for us, so you can take advantage of those. There are a few for databases. If you're using containers, there are a bunch of these. So look at those first before you start writing from scratch. There is another place you want to look at is the Query Explorer. There is saved queries. These are also pre-populated by Microsoft. So look at those first if you need to or Google it. Also, Microsoft has documentation. The Pluralsight course I was talking about, there is 8 modules, and they actually copied all the queries from all the modules. So if you do not have time to do the course, you can at least start from here, go from M1 to M8. This will be a good learning. What else I want to show you here in the tables? I think we saw those before. So let's get started. I'll probably mention this a few more times. If in your query you do not see a predicate with timestamp, by default you get the last 24 hours of data, and you are limited by 30,000 record. Unfortunately, even if you're doing aggregation, if you do not have a predicate with timestamp, you are aggregating only on the last 24 hours of data. This caught me off guard a few times because I did not remember. That's why I'm mentioning it. I'll probably mention it a few more times. So if you're new to this, there are a couple of things in the portal that you can do using some of the buttons here. If you're looking for a column that you don't see here, or if you don't like all the columns, you can choose, select, or unselect from here. If you want to do a group by, you can turn this on, and you can drag a column here to do a group by. And as you can see here, showing the results for first 30,000. They will tell you also the time range here. So let's take that off. Again, you have the same chart button. So if you want to create a chart from the result directly without using the render function, you can do that. And all of these are, I'm going to upload this. Many of these I copied from that Pluralsight course that I was talking about. And I also wrote instructions that you can go to this, to this workspace, and then you sign in, and you should be able to run all this. And I'm not using my own subscription here, using the free one. So as we talked about, a few times already, that our goal or our purpose, especially if you're if you're working with database, Synapse workspace, you want to know if things are going out of your boundary, right? The boundary that you set in. So we are probably, most of the time, we are probably searching stuff, right? And search is a function that you'll be using a lot. But the first one that I wrote here is I said, do not run this. And the reason I wanted to caution you, the search CPU means go through every database, every table, every column, and case insensitive. If you find search, give me the result set, right? So I'm sure you don't appreciate that, or nobody would appreciate that. On the next one, I'm limiting this at least to one table with Azure Metrics. And here, if I need a case sensitive, I have to mention it. If I do not mention it, it's case insensitive. Finally, this is something I'll probably run in my production, that I'm saying this table and this column name, right? At least a little bit better than all of those above. So here we are searching this table, this column, anything with CPU. It doesn't matter what's before and after of that. So am I okay? If you want an exact match, don't use a colon, equal equal. This is going to give us an exact match. I can also search for two things, right? I can combine this, or you can do this with a where clause. Notice one thing: as soon as I highlighted the ago 1 hour, this thing changed. If I take that off, if I just highlight this, it goes back to last 24 hours. So it does recognize that this time I have a predicate with date time stamp. So now I'm limiting. I'm just saying, give me from the last 1 hour, right? This where clause is pretty much same as T-SQL. There's another one here. This is interesting. We don't have this in T-SQL. We do not have 3 where clauses, right? This will give us error if we are using it in T-SQL. In Kusto, you are allowed to use it. And if you, or you can do AND statement. So both works. You can use regular expressions in some places. This is saying, give me any 10, right? Do not get fooled by this. In T-SQL, a lot of people get confused because they see the same 10 records over and over. Actually, it's coming from the same page in the cache. They think that there is an order to this, right? There's no order. So do not rely on this. If you keep running this, you might not, in this case, you don't get, right? You're getting different ones, but sometimes you might, but there's no order because we're just getting the random 10. You can do count. Again, you have to be careful, right? This count is from the last 24 hours, not everything you have in that table. So be careful with that. Group by, that's what we do in T-SQL. You can, here you use summarize, and then you can, give your clause here, by which column, and you can do a count or do other operations also. In T-SQL, we do use friendly column names, right? At some point, if we do, add 2 columns or do other math or calculations, here also you can do that, right? In this case, as you said, I didn't give it a name. It says count underscore. But if I want a friendlier name, I can also do that, same as T-SQL that we do. I will skip a lot of this because I only have 12 minutes. But again, I put enough comment, and for each one, I also put an URL in every script. So you should be able to go to Books Online on that page to read more and get more examples if you're interested. Project, what it does, as I said, the schema and Microsoft is well aware. They're breaking it up already in Azure Synapse, already in Azure Data Factory. They're going to break this up into more and more because right now it's one schema with 500 columns. A lot of columns are unnecessary. So if you want to just get the columns that you need, use the project, right? So this is pretty much saying select column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from Azure Matrix. So you just get those columns. You can also do, okay, I'm blanking. I don't know I know what you do this in T-SQL. If I say a column, calculated column, sorry, you can do the same and you can give it a name, right? If I'm saying, give me my CPU headroom, total minus average, I can do that. There's the interesting one that T-SQL doesn't have it directly. It's called project away. Here I'm saying, give me all the columns other than this 5 from this collection, which is interesting. Okay, so this is a phone call you heard. This is from the deadlock alert that we created. As you saw, it got delayed, right? And just to prove my point, I'm going to take a detour, and sorry about that. If I go to my email, I know it's my personal email. This is an older one that I want to show you. This is how you get the deadlock alert to your email address. Gives you even the query and more details. And you can also you can also attach more information if you want to in your email, or people can go to their log analytics workspace and do more queries and find out more details. So let's continue here. I'm going to mute my phone because it's going to probably give another call. I also got a got a text message about that. So distinct is pretty much same what we are used to. Again, if you do not have a um, sort by or anything, these are random. So don't this is not random because I'm sorting by time generated, but this one will be random because I do not have any order by clause. Um, there's a lot of extracts because in log analytics workspace you will see that sometimes because we are sending logs, you will see the data is saved either in JSON format, XML format, or like just as a key value pair. So there are a lot of functions that you will see that help you to extract the data. So I'm not going to go through all, but I'll give you one example, right? Say you have a XML column like this, and now you want to set an alert on this for some reason, but you do not want to send the raw XML into alert, right? Somebody getting up at 2 a.m., not easy for them to read about this, right? So if you see this, I'm using a parse XML function here, and I'm just going to get the stuff that I need in my alarm, into my alert, right? Or into my query. So as you can see, I'm actually getting these values from the keys, and I'm putting this in a table format. You can do that with the parse XML. I also have different ones for, the two dynamic is for the JSON values. So if we look at this, extended properties, right? So let me run this for, okay, so if we go to, let's do this from here. As you see this, I have all this, right, data that if I'm sending it in an alert, probably not very friendly. So what I can do here, I can put it in a variable, and then I said I only want these 4 things, right, from that JSON document. I do not want anything else. And it will put those, these 2 things and these 4 into a column, and it will populate those. So a lot easier to read. I'm going to move here a little bit to show you some of the visualizations that you can do. Column chart, you can even, change the graph type from here, or you can have time chart. There's another one. You can do all this. So without doing anything, right? I used to take a lot of, if someone wants to see what's the growth rate or how we are trending, oftentimes from SQL Server, I'll run a query, I'll take the result set into Excel, I'll do a pivot chart and do all those. I do not have to do those anymore. I can directly, do it from here. There's one more thing. If I have a data set that I'm going to use over and over, do I have to go to the disk and pull it every time, right? In SQL Server, we know that a page stay in the cache as long as it doesn't get evicted for many different reasons. Here you can use the materialize function. So to give an example, I'm taking this random set, but then as you see here on that random set, I'm doing 3 different operations, right? Summarize, stop, and another summarize in a different way. But I'm just going to pull this one time, and then it is going to use the data from the cache. I do not have to go back. So the limit of this cache size is a 5 gigabyte as of now. So a little bit more aggregation. You can do a summarize there's one thing called argmax. What it does is, let me run this. Maybe this will give you a better idea. It will do a group by, but it will also give us the max value for that group. So it gives you can look that up. Let is you can declare variables and you can use those in your query. So here we are declaring a table, and these are our columns and the data type, and then I can do a summarize on that, right? Top nested is another interesting one. Let me run this here. So it did a group by with a metric name, but for each group, it's going to give you the top 3 that qualified in that group. As you can see 3 here. If we change this to 4, you will see 4 here. So I talked about variables, right? So here we can do a number, a string, and a date time, right? And I can use all 3 when I'm running this query. That's pretty simple. One thing I talked about it in the slide, that I can do joins between 2 different collections, right? And this one I want to mention because most of us came from a database background. By default, we get inner join, right? If I do a table A join table B on whatever column, if I do not mention anything, we get an inner join. In T-SQL, we get inner join, but in Kusto, you do not get inner join. You get something called inner unique. So I want you to be aware of this, otherwise you might get burned on this. To give you an example here, I do not have to actually mention this inner unique, but I want to explicitly mention just so you know, because this is default. As you can see on my left data set, I have April twice, but in my result, I got April only once because I'm using inner unique. Now, if I do an inner join, and if I want to do an inner join, I have to mention it. This time you will see that I get April twice. So just keep that in mind. I also put some examples where I'm collecting data from CPU and memory from 2 different collections. As you can see here, I put the CPU data, memory data, and then I'm combining those 2, try to correlate, right? Not that it's, I'm not saying it's always correlated, but just to give you an example how you can get data from 2 different places and put those 2 together. So I have 2 minutes. I want to show you something because this comes, I get this question a lot. Or if some of you are in machine learning, I put this as an example, but go to this URL, there's more. How to use machine learning algorithms without you writing this from scratch. You just have to use evaluate function, and you can use basket. I put here auto cluster. There are more algorithms. These 2 are very common, people use in retails and in many other places. But I try to, there's some examples from this website in context to infrastructure that I put in here. So the last one is how can we export this data, right? This question I get a lot. So once you run this, you can come here, you can share this, query to Power BI, query results to clipboard, and you can do all kind of stuff. But in Power BI recently, there is a direct connector to Azure Data Explorer. So if we go to get data, and if you do not want to do that, you can actually from here, you can get the whole thing. So if we get a, what got copied is your query, your connection strings and everything. You can take this and also use it in a Power BI. because before we did not have the connector directly, but now you do not have to do that. So you can just say here help cluster databases, and I can bring this query here, and I can say okay. Oh dear. I know what I did wrong. Samples. Now we got the data. Load. Oh no. Apply changes. Right, now we have this data. I know this is, if you're working with Power BI, you'll probably laugh at my scale or looking at this, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. We can now create a chart of that data, right? And then we can put it in a dashboard, we can share it with other people, right? And they can refresh it at their will. So that's all I have. So I have time to hang around. I will let you ask questions either in the chat. I don't know if you can unmute. It's up to the organizers. So thank you very much for attending. And again, I'd welcome any feedback, suggestions, anything you have. So I'll put my contacts again in case any one of you want to reach out later on. Please do so.
There is a few questions. I know we're asked, can we query audit data as well?
Yes, we do. We do.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anything you send there, yes. So, and the good thing, you do not have to worry about the schema. You don't have to, it goes to the right one. Of course, at some point, you just have to know which one is going where, right? So you can write your queries.
And Bob asked, do you have examples for how to accomplish the same level of auditing using managed instance instead of Azure SQL databases?
Yeah, so I said, I saw that question before. I do not in this presentation, but I asked Bob, to reach out to me. As you saw, I already struggled with time. I went over by a minute or two because it's a lot of, this is not like a standard presentation that you have a flow, right? It's a lot of bits and pieces that I want to show so that people can go and, stitch those together. That's why I do not bring up Azure. I know, when you talk about Azure database, there's other stuff like you can have Azure SQL Server and Azure VM managed instance and all that. But I try to keep this limited to Azure SQL database mostly for the interest of time.
That's perfect. I do appreciate that. Give us a great idea of what we can do with this, and have a good idea of what we can look forward to in the future. This is great.
Definitely. I mean, I started with very small, and I talked with few people at Microsoft, showed them what do we want to do, because my goal was to not keep doing it over and over. Right? I want to set this up once, and wherever our company goes with this Azure migration, we should be all set from operation wise. So, but we do also a lot of stuff with the function apps. I just want to mention it. Not everything that I can achieve through this. So
that was perfect. I think I speak for everyone when we say that we have learned a lot from this, and definitely be looking for new ways to at least use this new skill set in the future and get to play with lots of fun demos. Woohoo!
And as Kevin said, Kevin will share the link with all of you. I'll send it by tonight. I want to just refresh my repo before I give you the link. So
perfect. All right. So with that, everyone, I do thank you for your time. We went a few minutes over, but not too bad. So please be sure to join us here in the next couple of weeks when we do our next presentation. So with that, Do thank everyone. Have a great day and a great week. Talk to y'all next time. Bye.